Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down an absolute emotional roller coaster of a match. If you caught the latest showdown between Brazil and Japan, you already know it was a true clash of philosophies. We're really looking at a fundamental tale of two mentalities here. On one side, you have Brazil's gritty, win-at-all-cost pedigree, and on the other, Japan's undeniable structural brilliance, which tragically just totally fractured under immense psychological pressure. So let's dive right into this analysis and see exactly how a potential monumental upset turned into yet another familiar heartbreak. Here's how we're going to break this all down today. First, we'll look at the first half shock, then Brazil's tactical shift. After that, Japan's familiar knockout heartbreak, followed by the players who decided it. And finally, we'll wrap up with the road ahead. All right, part one, the first half shock. Now, anyone expecting a comfortable 3 or 4-0 Brazilian cruise in those first 45 minutes got a really harsh reality check. Japan executed an absolutely flawless defensive strategy, operating with this rigid back five. We're talking Tomiyasu, Taniguchi, Ito, and Nakamura. They built an impenetrable wall. They completely choked out Brazil's passing lanes, just frustrating the South Americans at literally every turn. And then came the critical error. Danilo played a shocking, misplaced pass right into the midfield. Japan immediately pounced. Sano collected the ball, drove right past the Brazilian defense, and buried a beautiful goal to give Japan a 1-0 lead. No way, right? The source analysis actually used a highly specific and honestly perfect phrase to describe the Brazilian midfield during that sequence, specifically Casemiro. They said he was stuck in quicksand. Think about that. When Sano made that driving run for the opening goal, Casemiro had absolutely no legs to stop him. He was sluggish, giving the ball away left and right, and even colliding with his own teammates. It was just a miserable opening half for Brazil, leaving Japan in total, undeniable control heading into the tunnel. Which brings us to part two, Brazil's tactical shift. The narrative of this entire match flipped completely in the second half, and it all came down to a massive contrast in managerial mentalities. On one side, you have a proactive Carlo Ancelotti. He saw his team failing, right? So he immediately initiated aggressive formation shifts, fearlessly going straight for the throat. On the other side, you've got Hajime Moriyasu. Now, despite Japan playing excellent football all tournament long, when the pressure of the knockout stage mounted, well, fear kind of took over. He initiated a defensive retreat, seemingly hoping to just survive until penalty kicks. Let's look at exactly how Ancelotti dismantled Japan's structure. At halftime, he pulled a struggling Lucas Paqueta and brought on Endrick, completely shifting Brazil into a hyper-aggressive 4-2-4 formation. This is the setup he's actually tested before in friendlies and qualifiers. But the specific tactical genius here, the instruction to just spam aerial crosses, like a video game. Ancelotti identified a critical weakness. Japan's Nakamura and Don are notoriously weak in aerial duels. So for the first 10 minutes of the second half, Brazil relentlessly bypassed the midfield and just bombarded the box with crosses. Moving on to part three, Japan's familiar knockout heartbreak. This sequence of events is literally the stuff of nightmares for Japanese football fans. This isn't just a single isolated loss. It's a devastating, recurring pattern. Back in 2018, they were in complete cruise control with a 2-0 lead against Belgium, right before Belgium spammed crosses and knocked them out. Then in 2022, they took a 1-0 lead against Croatia, only to totally freeze in the second half and lose. And today, the exact same story, a 1-0 lead against Brazil, followed by a total collapse the second the opponent started lofting the ball into the box. It's like Groundhog Day. Our source captured the sheer agony of this perfectly with one simple question. How many times are we going to give excuses? Yes, Japan had a thin squad. Yes, they were missing injured stars like Kubo, Mitoma, and Endo. We all know that. But at a certain point, the excuses just have to stop. They clearly possess the technical ability to go toe-to-toe with giants like Argentina, France, or Brazil, but they repeatedly lack the mental belief to get over the edge in those critical do-or-die knockout moments. And honestly, that mental fragility, it starts at the very top. Moriyasu made a fatal error. He subbed off his key attacking outlets. Taking off Nakamura and Ritsu Doan to bring on defensive players like Suzuki and Sugawara signaled absolute, undeniable fear. Instead of exploiting the massive space Brazil was leaving behind their attacking fullbacks, Moriyasu basically threw away his counterattacking threat. He openly invited Brazil's relentless crashing waves of pressure purely to play for penalties. All right, part four, the players who decide of it. So based on those first 45 minutes, this is a completely fair question to ask.
Should Casemiro have been subbed off at halftime? Our source certainly thought so, noting he was absolutely awful in the opening frame. But here is the dramatic twist. Ancelotti trusted his experienced veteran, knowing Casemiro's absolute prowess in the air would be totally vital for their new crossing strategy. And man, did that trust pay off perfectly. Casemiro found himself at the back post, perfectly positioning himself to connect with Gabriel Magalhaes' cross, heading in the crucial equalizer. It was a complete Hollywood-style redemption arc in a matter of minutes. Meanwhile, Vinicius Jr. provided this incredible spark on the left side, despite having almost zero overlapping support from his fullback. Vinny was an absolute menace, constantly taking on multiple Japanese defenders. In one breathtaking sequence, he danced past Tomiyasu and Zion Suzuki to unleash a shot. As the source pointed out, if that had gone in, it would have been a Puskas Award contender for sure. It required an insanely good save from Zion Suzuki, who, by the way, had a fantastic tournament overall, to keep Brazil at bay. But if we're talking about the real engine of this comeback, it all comes down to a single concept: the one-man army. A player who single-handedly dominates the midfield. And today, this title completely belongs to Bruno Guimaraes. The source analysis actually joked that during the first half, Bruno was playing alongside two headless chickens in the Brazilian midfield. He literally had to do it all himself. Let's break down this man-of-the-match performance, because it was special. Bruno brought that aggressive, English-style football grit right to the pitch. He was attacking flawlessly, defending relentlessly, and just sweeping up absolutely everything in the middle of the park. And, crucially, he was the one who provided the game-winning assist. He earned total, unquestionable respect from the Brazilian fans today. Which brings us to the final, fatal sequence for Japan. Tanaka, who otherwise had a great tournament, gave up the ball, and it fell right to Bruno Guimaraes. In that chaotic split-second moment, Tomiyasu hesitated. He didn't step up to close down the space. And look, you simply cannot give Gabriel Martinelli an inch of space. Martinelli, who was a surprising substitution by Ancelotti, ruthlessly punished that hesitation, finding the back of the net and breaking Japanese hearts yet again. Finally, Part 5. The road ahead. For Brazil, looking forward, it's really about managing expectations. Do they look like a classic, dominant World Cup winning side? Honestly, no. This is not the 2002 Brazil team with Cafu and Roberto Carlos flying down the wings playing that flashy, beautiful, unstructured Joga Bonito football. Instead, Ancelotti's squad looks much more like the 1994 Brazil team. They are gritty, they are highly structured, and they possess a ruthless, win-at-all-cost mentality as they chase down that sixth star. And they're going to need every ounce of that grit, because challenges definitely remain. Next up, they'll face either Ivory Coast or Norway. And the glaring tactical flaw that future opponents will absolutely try to expose, that's Danilo's right side. While center backs Marquinhos and Magalhaes did an excellent job covering for him today, Danilo's flank remains a major vulnerability that better counterattacking teams might just punish. But despite the flaws from both teams, you absolutely cannot deny the entertainment value here. The source gave this match a spectacular 8.5 out of 10 rating. From the sluggish, tactical chess match of the first half to the relentless crossing and extremely high drama of the second, it was, quite simply, absolute cinema. But we have to end our explainer today by looking back at the tragic figures of this narrative. Japan clearly has the technical skill to stand with the giants of world football. They've proven that time and time again. But technique just isn't enough in the dying moments of a high-stakes knockout game. So I want to leave you with this final provocative question to chew on. Will Japan ever be able to turn their undeniable footballing brilliance into the mental fortitude required to finally win a knockout game at the 2030 World Cup? Or are they forever doomed to repeat this heartbreaking cycle? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.